All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. My name is Ashley Stewart, and this is Awareness with Ashley. Before I get into today's video, the only announcement I have is what I plan on doing with the podcasts moving forward. Over the next, I would say, about a month, there's probably going to be a podcast every other week because I find it's actually easiest for me to record podcasts on the weeks that I work on Saturdays. So I think what I'm going to do is every time that I work a Saturday, I am going to make a podcast that week. Over the next month, it's going to be about every other weekend. And then starting in October, it'll move to once every 3 weeks again. I should get quite a bit of podcast content for quite a while. So I don't think I'm ever going to run into an issue where I'm going to run out of content for the shorts videos. As you guys may or may not have noticed, I've started on YouTube, I've started actually listing the short video that these come from because YouTube lets me do that. It makes it really easy for you guys to click from a short video onto this longer content. So be sure to watch out for that if you're watching the short videos. YouTube isn't letting us link to anything on our short videos anymore, so this is the way I have to do it. But honestly, I think it actually works out better in the end. What my goal is eventually, and what I would like to do, is be able to upload these in video form to supporters. So I already do this on locals.com, but I know that not everybody wants to join on Locals. It's a completely separate and distinct platform, but it is a place that allows me to have a supporter community, which helps cover some of the expenses with the channel. So if you're wanting to do that for now, it's only on locals.com. But I'm really hoping that we can get a good enough attraction so that I can build a supporter community on YouTube as well. With that being said, I think that's my plugging out of the way for now. Let's get into today's topic. So I have titled this, "We Can Only Do Our Best." So this quote today is, "Some days are better, some days are worse. Look for the blessing instead of the curse. Be positive, stay strong, and get enough rest. You can't do it all, but you can do your best." This quote is by Doe Zantamata. I'm sure I'm quite butchering that name. This quote is awesome because it's almost a mini poem with the rhyming. And it's like something you can rattle on in your head when you're having a rough time. Even when you're doing mainly well, like I am, bad days will still happen. It's not about having 0 bad days, but doing your best all of the time. One thing I can never guarantee to anyone, no matter who they are, is that every single day will be a good day for me. But one thing I can guarantee to the people around me is that I will always try and to do my best. This means that my best may be of lower productivity on some days because not every day is great, but I will always give 100% of the effort that I can give on those days. It's hard too because when you're doing really well, a lot of the time people may not see when you're struggling, because often if you're like me, you kind of have to tell them when you're having a rough period of time. People think that we fake being sick sometimes to get out of doing certain things, but the truth is that you're more likely to see us fake being well, especially when we have commitments or all of that. It's more likely that you'll find one of us trying to fake being well than the other way around. You can't get stuck only focusing on the bad days. At some point, we need to accept that we will always have bad days. Bad days happen to everyone. I'm happy as long as my good days are outnumbering these bad days. There is no cure. IIH technically doesn't have a cure in my opinion. Weight loss does seem to get as close to a cure as there is, but personally, I think if I was to gain my weight back, I wonder what would happen. Like, if you were to actually cure something, it would never come back again no matter what. But I think that it's hard to say if something is a cure when you're obviously, like, not able to guarantee that it's never going to come back again. I'm basically just happy as long as I have a significant number of good days over bad days. And my bad days now usually consist of reduced productivity. I don't think I've had a day in a very long time. I almost need to knock on some wood at this point, But I don't think I've had a bad day in a really, really long time that's kept me stuck in bed. But usually a bad day is when I'm having a lot of symptoms and then it starts affecting my ability to be productive and it affects my productivity levels. People need to understand, though, that just because I'm not stuck in bed doesn't mean that this isn't a hindrance. It's just something that can potentially slow me down and make it look like I might be slacking on a particular day. But if I'm really, really struggling, it's usually because I'm having a loss of productivity due to symptoms that I'm experiencing. I make this pledge right now, and I want you guys to say this with me. No matter what today holds, I will always give it my best effort. Even when a bad day happens, I will always do the best I can. And I think that's the biggest thing you need to promise yourself when you start to be able to become a productive member of society. And honestly, this doesn't happen with everybody with migraines. I'm very lucky, and I'm one of the lucky ones that have found something that has helped. And I want people to really understand that fact. I'm one of the rare exceptions. It hurts me that people don't have the same access to either medications or don't find a medication that works as well as I have. Like, I am so thankful for this all of the time because without it, I wouldn't be where I am today. And what people need to understand is that just because I'm out now, a loss in productivity still may be part of the deal if I'm having a rough day. With my preventative, not all migraines will be prevented, but sometimes it means that my best on one particular day may be reduced from my best on a good day. I was kind of getting into this a little bit earlier. It's not just being stuck in bed unable to function. Sometimes you really do have a loss in productivity that can affect your ability to function just as much as a day stuck in bed. I would say that a loss in productivity is much easier for me to accept because I'm still at least able to do the things I do, but it's still equally as frustrating on a similar level, if that makes any sense. Loss in productivity is still being affected by migraines. I think I was having about 20 migraine days a month before I started my preventative medication on the Aimovig. I am now down to about, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 days an average a month of what I consider lost productivity. In the studies, I believe Aimovig had a reduction of about 50% in migraine days. I feel like I've gotten more out of that, so I feel like I've actually performed better, which is why I'm happy despite these losses in productivity, if that makes any sense. So the loss in productivity is still a thing that I have to work around, but it's not quite as frustrating because I'm still able to do things. I often have to approach it in a different way, or I have to modify what I'm doing. So for example, if I'm having to do a lot of stock on a day where I'm experiencing a lot of dizziness, it can be a problem because I'm not able to get up on the ladder. And I've mentioned this before, I'm quite short. It affects my ability to do my job on those days. It just might take me a little bit longer to accomplish the same task that on a normal day would mean that I'm able to do it a lot faster. It's also kind of a safety issue for me when I get dizziness or all of that, and got certain tasks I need to do for sure. But you just work around that. I think what people need to understand is that there's always the next day or the day after where there will come a point where I'm able to do the thing that you have asked me to do. It just might not be that day. I will always try my best to give it a best effort though. So what that means is if I can find a way to do something in a modified way, I will still get the task done. It just might not be done in the normal way that I would usually approach it, just because it can be dangerous for me to do that. I also like this particular quote because it emphasizes rest as well. If people only could see how much rest I need to be able to maintain the schedule that I have, I think they'd be surprised. You only see the outcome of the rest, though, so it's not fair to compare each other. This quote emphasizes rest, and without the schedule and routine that I have put myself in, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. I have to do this in order to maintain the schedule. There's no getting around it. I just need the rest in order to be able to maintain the schedule. So like, yeah, we find it always funny that I'm going to bed so early all of the time, but to be truthful, I need it. That's why I do it. I think if people were to actually see everything that goes into me being able to maintain the schedule, even with how good I'm doing now, I really do think they'd be surprised. You got to remember that when you're seeing people out in public, or when you're seeing people maintain a certain schedule, you're only seeing the output of everything that they do around to maintain that. So what I'm trying to say is, it's impossible for me to show absolutely everything that I do. Even in a vlog, it gets edited significantly. So it's impossible for me to show exactly everything that I do to maintain all of this so that I can be functional. Because of that, it's not fair to compare me to somebody who's really, really struggling right now. And that being said, there's likely probably people that are doing way better with me that have migraines. What I'm saying is we're all a little bit different. So what we're able to do and maintain in our schedules, we put in the work and people never see that work. The outcome and comparison is never fair. We're not only so individual on the presentation of our symptoms, but what we can do because of the work that goes into maintaining the lifestyle, basically. I think one of the things I may not have talked about is looking for the good instead of the bad. I know that people get frustrated with being asked to be positive and all of that, and I think there's a time and place to vent out your frustrations, and it's really important to let negative emotions out. Being positive and trying to be strong and doing everything that you possibly can does factor into kind of pulling yourself up out of that rut. The body naturally, as I've talked about before, I think looks to rest as it's usually the answer when you're really, really fatigued and really, really exhausted. But at some point, you kind of have to push through that. You kind of do have to look at the positive parts in what you can maintain, because if you only focus on what you can't do, it's only going to frustrate you. And I know that I've been there myself. Like, there are times I think when, if you're in the process of needing to vent for sure, that it's helpful to just vent out your frustrations. And I think that's where the camera has been really handy, and having an ability to tea kettle has been really important. If you guys have never heard of it, tea kettling is kind of when you let out those negative emotions so that your tea kettle doesn't bubble over. You can only ever do your best. So like, if you're really not feeling into something, you really need to ask yourself whether that thing is worth doing. There's going to be limitations, extra limitations that you need to work with, but people will always, if they care about something, if you make it so that they do care about something, they try every single way they can to try and make it happen for you. And I think getting back into the first sentence here, some days are better and some days are worse. I think this applies to life as well. The truth is with chronic illness, some days will be okay, others will be terrible. It's more about focusing on those good days and trying to survive your bad days, essentially. And I say survive your bad days because if that equilibrium is more good days and bad days, those bad days are going to be frustrating, and I don't know about anyone else, but I do tend to focus on them. Would it be nice that I never had another bad day with migraines again? Of course. The reality is unrealistic. People expect a prevention to include never having another bad day, when I think the prevention needs to be, I have significantly more good days than bad days, because before it was significantly more bad days than good. I love this because it was like a poem. It's a reminder that you can kind of remember, I think, too, and whisper to yourself on a bad day. So with that being said, you guys can follow me across social media. I'm on all of the platforms. And so that's TikTok and Threads at Awareness with Ashley, and Instagram at Awareness with Ashley, and Twitter at Ashley Stewart 94, also called X, if whatever Elon's calling it these days. And Facebook is at Ashley Stewart, YouTube at Ashley Stewart, and I believe that's all of the platforms. If you are watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe and like the video. Also leave a comment. When you engage, it just tells the algorithm that you're enjoying the content. Feel free to share your story or what you thought of today's podcast. If you're listening to this on a podcasting platform, please subscribe and leave a review, as it does help the podcast get more listeners. And again, if you're wanting to get these podcasts in video form, you can do so on locals.com. That's ashleystewart.locals.com to become a supporter. And I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.